It's right up my street, it's my boulevard. It's right up my Straza, oh my God. It's garden right up there, ah, it's right up my podcast.
Welcome to Right Up My Podcast. Oh, this is Gwen Watson.
And this is Kate White.
And this is the podcast in which we talk to really clever people about the really clever ways that they have to make us feel good.
And this episode, we are talking to Behavioural Change Specialist Shahroo Izadi, all about breaking bad habits, basically, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, thankfully, I don't have any of those. Do you, Kate?
Well, no, I'm just asking for a friend, you know. And actually, this is our last recorded interview from the Big Retreat Festival, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Now, it's not actually breaking bad habits, is it? It's creating new, better ones.
Yes, this is
Shahroo would say.
An important distinction, actually, isn't it? Not punishing ourselves for existing behaviour, but just creating healthier habits that make us feel happier and being kinder to ourselves in the process.
Exactly. Yes, I'm all for that.
Absolutely.
Now, speaking about being kinder to ourselves and doing nice things, what have you been doing to make yourself feel good, Kate?
I have been obsessing over hot air balloons. So currently in Bristol right now, it's the Bristol...
Can I just say, I did not see that coming.
Curveball from Kate. It's the Bristol...
Colour me interested.
It's the Bristol Balloon Festival this week.
Oh, yes.
And it's been cancelled for the last 2 years because of COVID, yawn. And it's back on, and I've just gone full fangirl about this. So last night I went to this thing which was called a night glow. So,
I love that.
Oh, have you been to it back in your Bristol days?
Yes, I did the morning launch and the night. I didn't go up in one.
No.
I went up about 20 feet. And had to come back down again because it was tied to the ground.
Oh, okay, not
so that's a different story. But carry on.
No, I didn't even get in one. I didn't even get to touch one. So you already have out-ballooned me here. But yes, I went to the Nightglow. For people listening who don't know what the hell I'm chatting about, they basically, all the balloons are tethered to the ground, but there's about, it looked like there's about 50. Maybe it wasn't as many as that. All clumped together and they all inflate and it's dark. And it's set to music and they all kind of light up, choreographed in inverted commas, to the music. And it's great. It's so much fun. And then this morning, actually, I got up at 5:30, and went to the morning takeoff, which was really beautiful as well, as it's such gorgeous weather. Balloons all floating up into the blue skies. Oh, it was heaven.
Because the thing about the Bristol Balloon Fest is... it is very wind dependent, isn't it?
Oh, my God. How they ever take off.
Those balloons are such little prissy queens.
Oh,
if there's
so
just
precious.
a hint of too much rain or too much wind, they're like, I'm not going anywhere.
No, I won't
and
do
you've
it.
you've got hundreds or thousands of people up there, like you said, from 5:30 in the morning to watch it all. And so often it's cancelled.
So often it's cancelled. In fact, they didn't even fly last night because it's too hot. So there's all these crazy thermals which are going to take the balloons up. Someone told me to like 8,000 metres or something crazy, although I might have gotten science wrong then. Are they in space if they're at 8,000?
Are they at Saturn at that point?
Are they orbiting the planet at this point? Hence they didn't fly. But this morning we were waiting to see if they were going to take off or not. And the guy over the loudspeaker said, we're just waiting for Smokey Dave to give us the all clear.
Come on, Smokey Dave.
And Smokey Dave has to put out either green smoke if they're flying or red smoke if they're grounded. So everyone was waiting on tenterhooks. What Smokey Dave's
It's like when they choose a new pope.
It was exactly like that. And then when the green smoke came out, they shall fly. It was a religious experience, I tell you.
Oh my God, that's so exciting.
It was really fun.
And you said earlier you didn't know whether it was 50 balloons. It probably was. They have hundreds of balloons take off, don't they?
Yeah, it's madness. They're all butting into each other. And some woman in front of me got ridiculously overexcited that one was shaped like Shaun the Sheep. She literally leapt up. She's like, oh my God, it looks like a sheep. Like, all right, calm down.
The year I went, my favourite one from the year I went was a Darth Vader one.
Oh, yes.
Because obviously, I mean, when you were saying about the night lift or whatever it's called, and they all light up, light the burners. That sound is so unique to balloons, isn't it? It's just such a wonderful sound, hearing all the fires being lit. I'm sure there's more technical terms for that. And it is like... And so this Darth Vader one was so perfect. It was like sailing along going...
That's brilliant.
It was really clever. Very clever.
I love it. Yes, so that's been a lot of fun.
Good for you.
How about you, Gwen? What have you been up to?
Well, I think this is basically ditto to one of our last recordings that I have spent so far 4 days in a row down the beach. Oh. And I've been having what is the true sense of the term staycation.
Nice.
You know how, like, during the last couple of years, it's been bastardised with people thinking it just means to travel somewhere in the UK. No, it doesn't. Staycation is where you stay at home and have a vacation. And it's just been too hot. I've unfortunately, but also fortunately, not had that much work this week. And the work that I have had, I've literally like opened my laptop and been like, oh, I'm too hot.
Can it do it?
Yeah. So I've been like lying in the hammock in the back garden, reading a book or just pottering around. And every afternoon, evening, been going down the beach, and friends been coming down every day. And yesterday I just thought, you know what, I'm going to go down, I'm going to brave the hordes, I'm going to spend the whole day down there. I've got my lounger and my umbrella.
Love it.
And I took my cool bag with enough food for the whole day, and I took a book, and it was just great.
That sounds so good. Do you sit there quietly seething at the tourists, or are you accepting of their presence?
A little. When lovely, I don't know what her name was, Shayla, a kid in the tent next to me, was arguing over, she wanted the blue spade, not the pink spade.
Oh,
so,
rein it in,
shit
Shayla.
Like that, you're like, right, yeah, exactly. Pipe down, Shayla. And then when they're going, let's go for an ice cream, there was this whole thing in the end of them getting ready to go for an ice cream, and I found myself through gritted teeth going, just go for the ice cream. just go. Just fuck off. But actually, compared to my back garden, it is actually... it's nice to sit and people watch.
Yes,
and you kind of end
that.
up having a bit of a relationship with people throughout the day. Like, you get to know their comings and goings.
Yes.
And so I enjoyed it. I liked it. I was in and out the sea. My friend arrived in the evening with his boat, and we went out for a little pooter around the bay. I mean, it's ridiculous, isn't it?
Oh, that's heaven.
But it was...
what sort of boat? In my mind, we're talking luxury cruiser... you're on there in your gold bikini and stilettos.
Exactly that. Yeah. Keep that in mind. It's actually like a little red plastic thing that just goes on the back of it. Probably not plastic. That goes on the back of his car. It's like a 15cc or something. It just goes. It's got like a lawnmower engine in it, and we just pooter around. It's basic but beautiful.
Basic but beautiful. Bit like you, Gwen. I'm
exactly. Suits me down to the ground.
Can we just take a moment as well to sing the praises of the hammock? Oh my God. Why are hammocks such bringers of joy?
I don't know. It's a very good place to sleep, I've discovered.
Do you think the gentle rocking takes us back to being in the womb?
I was wondering.
Like that sort of rebirthing experience.
Yes, there is something about being like held and suspended. Because I usually have my lounger and I lie on that, and I was like, why is this so much better than being on my lounger?
Yeah.
It is, you are kind of cocooned in there as well.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I literally lie in it and I'm asleep within seconds.
Oh, it's the dream. Then you've got to clamber out again as you sort of disappeared into these folds of material.
Yeah. Apparently the key is to lie diagonally, which I've never known in my whole life. And now I'm learning this. I haven't quite nailed it, but that's the way to not get totally wrapped up like a burrito.
Like a sweaty burrito.
Yum! And I tell you what, when we lived in Australia during heatwave, we would just hose down our hammock and then get in it while it's cold and wet.
Genius.
And wrap it around you.
Oh, that's such a good idea.
It's a top tip. It's really, really good. That was when it was in the 40s, but, you can go for it in the UK as well.
I think a sweet 35 degrees definitely
That's
warrants
hot enough.
hosing down. Although not in South Wales, because aren't you on a hosepipe ban?
Oh my God. Yes, it's coming in on the 19th. And literally, I've been so smug moving back to Pembrokeshire that I thought when the world is fighting over water, we're going to be absolutely fine because we have so much rain. And our local reservoir's nearly dry.
Wow.
And so I think it's the first time in my life where there's going to be a hosepipe ban here.
It's crazy.
It's mental.
Isn't it? Yeah, that is madness.
It's not good.
No.
Oh, God. Anyway, have you been watching or reading anything good?
Well, I watched a film that I really loved the other night. Chris wasn't so keen on it. It's Prey on Disney+. Have you heard of it?
I don't think I have. I'm going to Google it while you go for it.
Of the Predator series of films. It's a prequel to Predator. I'm not a big fan of Predator films. I'm not a big fan of the kind of horror genre or sci-fi genre or any of that. But this I really enjoyed. I really loved it. I think I loved it so much. So it's a Predator, for those of you who don't know, is some sort of alien warrior who comes to Earth for sport, to kill for sport, basically. Just for funsies, you know.
And you can't see it, can you? Is it invisible?
No. I mean, he has like a invisibility force field that he can put around himself.
Right.
And he comes into 1700s in the Great North Plains in North America. And he basically... So he comes with all this tech, but he comes into a time on Earth where there is no tech. And he comes into a Native American community, and there's a young girl who...
So this is in Prey now?
This is in Prey now.
Yeah.
There's a young girl who wants to be a hunter, but no one really takes her very seriously. And I don't want to give away any spoilers, but she comes into her own.
Go, girl, go.
Yeah, and I really enjoyed it. Nature versus tech, and nature wins, which is always a fun battle to be had.
I love that. Just a headline here. Prey has set new world records on Hulu and Disney+. So it's obviously very popular.
Yeah, I enjoyed it a lot.
The biggest premiere on Hulu since it launched in 2007. So
there you go.
Wow.
And I've also been getting into Only Murderers in the Building, which I have been enjoying, but there's a big but here. I can't stand Selena Gomez. There's something about her that really grates on me.
Yes. Now, I think I can see what you're saying. I felt like, because it's her acting debut.
Is it?
And so, she's not an actor. She's a singer. And you kind of think like, is it that she can't act very well? But ultimately, I've kind of come around to thinking, actually, she's perfect for that role. She is perfect in that role. And because she's got an unusual voice, hasn't she?
She has, yes.
Can you do an impression of her for us, please?
I don't think I can do an impression of Selena. Oh, God.
That was really good, actually. She's very dry. She's very deep.
Dry and
nasally. Yeah.
I kind of go into Northern Irish really quickly when I do that, though.
Oh, my God. You're really good at that. I went into Southern there. But I think maybe if you just come around thinking, I think it quite suits that role. And so I've come to like her more.
Maybe I need to stick with it and kind of get a bit more into because I'm only on the 4th episode, I think.
Right.
It's also the lack of facial expressions. I just want her to crack a facial expression. I don't, it can be happy or sad, whatever you want. I'm not going to be too prescriptive about this because surely she's too young to have frozen her face with Botox. I'm sure that face moves.
Who knows?
But just give it a go.
Just just show us how you're feeling, Selena.
I just want some insight. She's playing it too straight for my liking.
I tell you what, though, it's midway through the first series. We've spoken about this before. I don't know whether it was on here or Patreon, but Steve Martin and Martin Short, who are both from our films in the 90s, 80s and 90s, absolute brilliant double header, double twin team. What am I saying? Just dream team. Martin Short steals the show, and it comes from about midway through the first season. He just starts really playing it up for the laughs, and he makes me howl laughing. It's worth watching for him.
He's genius. I totally agree. I love him.
Yeah.
And then Steve Martin is just like a big hug, a big kind of warm, cosy flashback to, like you said, the 90s and those sort of lovely family-friendly films. You know, he just gives me all that warmth.
Yes.
What about you, Gwen? What have your cultural absorptions been this week?
Well, I'm going to shock the world here. My friends who listen to the podcast said to me, Gwen, all you do to make yourself feel good is watch telly. I think you should do more things. Well, hey, prepare yourself because I've been reading a book, right?
Oh, my God, boom.
No, I always read books. I read books every single night to go to sleep. But this one is one that I think everybody else should read. It's Bob Mortimer's autobiography called And Away.
That's made me so happy that that's what you're reading. Oh my God, I love Bob Mortimer.
You've read it.
I've read it. I loved it.
Oh God. I'm reading it because, so this is Bob Mortimer who was in Vic and Bob. They did Vic and Bob's Big Night Out and Shooting Stars and etc. But more recently, he's better known for being on Taskmaster and Would I Lie to You? He's so funny on Would I Lie to You?
Genius.
But my favourite thing that he does probably is Gone Fishing with Paul Whitehouse. I
love it.
And that's where the title of the book comes from, because every time they put a fish back in, they go, and away.
Yes.
And
so good.
The autobiography is just so wonderful.
It is.
And I think because all the TV shows that he's talking about, we know them all, and we were there for all of them.
Yeah. It feels like you're getting this real sort of inside experience, like you said, of all these wonderful shows that we've loved so much. And then also his personal life, like his family life. He's had, in his childhood, his dad died when he was really young, didn't he? And then in later life, he's had a double heart bypass, and that took him through. And that's what was the inspiration behind Gone Fishing, wasn't it? Kind of,
yes.
It took him to a really different mental health place. And so he talks all about that. It's brilliant. Oh, I'm so glad you're enjoying it.
Yeah, absolutely loving it. I'm near the end now. And I think Paul had some stents put in, Paul Whitehouse.
Yeah.
And it was very much Bob being in a funk and Paul trying to get him out of it, and he was taking him fishing, and then gradually they were like, how about we do a show about this? Yeah. And I love that he was saying when they first started recording, they were like, oh God, what have we done? This is going to be rubbish. And then Paul catches a fish, Bob falls over, and there it is. That is the joy, the beauty, and it was set.
And that's what the programme's going to be. Because, yes, that cracked me up on the first episode. They just sort of stood there with their fishing rods going, here we are at the River Tyne.
Yes.
Like, we don't know what we're doing or saying.
Yes. And that was really, what's the word? Reaffirming, or affirming, I don't know what, to know. You know, like when we started this podcast, we recorded the intro about 17 times.
Know,
and if you listen back to the first episode, we've definitely done that intro a number of times. I don't know if it was scripted at one point, but
it's rehearsed to an inch of its life.
Yes,
beyond an inch of its life.
Yeah, these days, clearly not. So yeah, really nice to know that that even the professionals in the field,
when you were reading
it,
did you hear Bob Mortimer's voice in your head? Did you read it in his accent?
Oh, I don't know.
Yeah.
Did you?
I think I listened to an audiobook actually, so it was him reading
that will
it.
help.
Yeah, it was actually his voice in my head.
Do you know what? I could really hear his voice when I was listening to his voice to reading that book.
What is his voice?
It was amazing.
It's right up my podcast.
Now, just a reminder about our Patreon page. This is where we put our extras from our episodes and where we put all our jingles, and also where Kate and I do a little bit of extra whiffle waffle just for your delectation.
Now, we don't rely on advertising in order to fund the production of Right Up My Podcast, but we do have a Patreon page where we would love it if you could go over, and if you can donate the cost of a cup of coffee once a month, that would just help to cover the time and the costs that Gwen and I spend in putting these episodes together, cover the time of our talented team who help us out, and help us keep producing episodes of Right Up My Podcast with fabulous guests that we know you'd love to listen to.
If you'd like to become one of our supporters, head on over to patreon.com/Right Up My Podcast. So this is episode 31, all about changing habits.
And this episode, we talk to behavioural change specialist Shahroo Izadi. Now, Shahroo is a psychologist whose approach is inspired by her experience working across the UK with people in addiction treatment. And she does private treatments, and she's also trained NHS staff in this as well. She was awarded Thought Leader of the Year Baton Award at the House of Lords. She's provided training for staff at Amazon, Google, Facebook, as well as coaching humanitarians working with refugees. Women's Health magazine has called her Britain's answer to Brene Brown, which I just love. Trumpet fanfare, please. Hello. And she's also an author and has published books including The Last Diet and her number one bestseller, or should I say the number one bestseller, The Kindness Method. So we started our chat with Shahroo by asking her, what is the Kindness Method?
The Kindness Method is a framework. It's a series of exercises that you can take yourself through anytime you want to change a habit and you don't know why you're not changing it or what's kind of missing in the process. Because I think a lot of the time we know what we want to change when we want to create new routines or change habits, and we even know a lot of the time how to do it. What we need is something to understand, a framework that helps us to understand why we're not doing it. And that's what I help people to do, to start doing it and keep it up, whatever they want to do. And that's what the Kindness Method helps you do. And it's called the Kindness Method because all the exercises are based in liking yourself more.
So why do we form these bad or destructive habits in the first place?
Well, I think it's important to say that what's destructive to one person isn't necessarily to another. But I think a lot of the time we do things... The things we think are problems now when it comes to habits very often began as solutions to something. So say what you want to stop doing is, I don't know, drinking after work. You might frame that as the problem, whereas it's a solution. It's doing something for you. It's punctuating the end of the day. It's serving as a coping strategy for stress or anxiety or boredom. And so the important thing, I think, is to reframe that and understand, okay, can I diversify my coping strategies as opposed to just think I'm getting rid of bad stuff that I'm doing and take the judgment out of it and say, this is doing a job for me. What else could do that job that might be a little bit healthier?
So you calling it bad behaviour is adding judgment to it.
Oh, so actually that's the first step, is it?
I think so. I think the first step is turning the whole thing on its head in terms of a lot of the time when we want to make a change, we're really fed up. And so we focus on what's wrong with us and we focus on what's wrong with our habits. If you can shift that and focus on what's right with you and what's right with your habits, what you have is access to all these resources and a boost in self-belief and a reminder of your capacity and also compassion for yourself for finding it difficult to change because you understand that it's playing a role in your life like a friend. So yeah, I think taking judgment out of the whole equation, I just don't think any of it helps. I don't think being horrible to yourself helps at all. About anything.
And it's not just about discipline, is it? We use the word self-discipline a lot. Like, if only I had more willpower or more self-discipline, then I wouldn't turn to the fridge or the booze or etc. But it's more than that, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Because first of all, willpower is something that will fluctuate. It's wildly dynamic. The people who appear to have willpower for long periods of time are people who have assumed that there will be periods where they want to give up and created space in their brains to decide what they're going to do in those moments to carry on. So I think that, and I think also people sometimes, they think that they should care more about the byproduct of a behaviour on the spot. Like, I should know better because I'm going to feel like this tomorrow. And I think that's a bit ambitious. I think you're better off trying to work out how to make it compelling to not do it right now. And then people beat themselves up and think, I know how this is going to end up. And what they're doing is forgetting that they have a relationship with the behaviour right now, as well as the byproduct, whether they like it or not. And I think we blame ourselves and think, if I know this is bad for me, why am I doing it? But it's going to feel bad for you later, not now.
Not now, but right now it feels good.
Exactly.
So what's happening in our brains right now? Why is it a habit that we do? Like Gwen made a really good analogy earlier when we were chatting in advance of this about how you go to the station and you buy a Kit Kat, and suddenly every time you go to the station you have to buy a Kit Kat. I mean, what's happening, because that's a habit, that's what you do at the station. What's happening in our brains that makes us behave like that?
I guess you're forming an association and a pathway, but a lot of the time it becomes automatic, and we can learn how to create new habits by knowing that too. So ultimately, habit change books, I think, can be called Do It in a Row Till It's Easy. Till you're doing it without thinking about it. And so just help people do it in a row. And sometimes the do it in a row thing will be getting a Kit Kat every day. But it does. A lot of these things become automatic. We don't really think about them, particularly when you attach them to existing habits. And we can use that to our advantage. Like I always say, whenever I ask people to do like morning journals or whatever else, I always say, do it on the loo, or like do it at the kettle. Do it where you know you're going.
Yes, okay. So you're something that you absolutely do every day.
Exactly. Attach it to that.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Rather than having to find another 10 minutes where you're sat in bed with your mood music and your lighting.
Yeah, or even having to remind yourself, like I literally put things physically in front, like I've got dumbbells next to my couch, just in case,
Clever.
Yeah, or I put like everything I want to do, every new morning habit I want to create, I put near the kettle.
Yes. That's the focus of your morning.
I know I'm going there. Do you know what I mean? Like I'm not going to be able to deny.
Idea.
It's like, oh yeah, I'm journaling gratitude. Yeah, I remember I'm doing a gratitude thing right at the moment. Here we go. Literally I have to basically, I'm quite a lazy person by default. I literally have to take off the lid. If I'm going to do it. Take the lid off the pen, notepad
so
open.
it's ready.
Literally, it's harder to not do it than to do it. I forgot. Yeah, associations. If you can attach a new habit to something you're doing every day anyway, then we can learn a lot from your Kit Kat habit.
Yes.
And turning it on its head. So that might turn into a Kit Kat and a glass of water habit,
Yeah, right. Okay. Is it true? It just feels like to me that it's easier to form, in inverted commas, bad habits than it is to form healthy ones. Why is that? It's much easier to be like, oh, I'm at the station now. I always get a Kit Kat here. I feel like that's much easier than going, it's a Wednesday and I'm going to go jogging.
I think there's an element of mastery involved there. So it's going to take a while before you get the benefits of the jogging, right?
Yes, okay. So you're not getting that instant hit necessarily.
Yeah, exactly. Sometimes people will say to me, like, I'm going to stop drinking wine or smoking weed or whatever, I'm going to meditate instead, and I'm like, you are about to be wildly disappointed.
Right. Yes. Because that's not motivating.
I'm sorry. Yeah, exactly.
10 minutes in,
really ambitious.
Not doing anything.
Yeah.
So in that scenario, what do you tell them is a better approach?
Push it in.
What does that mean?
Do both.
Okay.
Do a little bit of that until you're getting better at one thing, Let the mastery develop until you're getting the benefits from it. But don't put yourself in a state where you've taken away your friend. Obviously, I'm not going around encouraging people to, take all the drugs they can or whatever. Do you know what I mean? But as a concept, let's say we're talking about Mars bars. Let's say I eat Mars bars every day.
Yeah. Well, they help you work, rest and play.
That's
what I've been told.
They are.
Every day.
God's work. Let's say I eat a Mars bar every day and I want to stop eating Mars bars. I don't know, because, there's a rumour going around that sugar's not the best.
I don't know what you're talking about.
It's fake news.
Yeah.
Fuck that. I wouldn't stop eating... Now, knowing what I know now, I wouldn't stop eating Mars bars and put myself in that place of, restriction and deprivation. And, because, first of all, aside from it being not what I deserve, a life I don't deserve, also puts me in a mindset of obsessing about them.
That's all you'll think about.
Yeah,
Mars
exactly.
bars. Yeah.
But you will look like a Mars bar to me until I consume one. Whereas what I would do instead is probably be like, right, I want a Mars bar. I'm going to eat a banana first. Just take the edge off.
Yes.
Then see if I don't eat less of that Mars bar.
Yes.
I don't put myself in that state of complete deprivation and nothing will do except that. And then you just reassess the situation. You're not in that state of when will I get my hands on this again and therefore how much of it can I consume. And I have to keep an eye on that because I was previously a binge eater, and I've used these tools to that I learned in addiction to help me to find my own version of moderation around food and to actually enjoy food. And so for me, it was all about pushing more good stuff in and then watching the other stuff naturally be less helpful.
Yes. Rather than all to nothing overnight.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think it also reinforces this kind of punitive, you've been bad, you must be punished, and your things that you love must be taken away. That certainly makes me want chocolate. Just saying that now makes me want a Mars bar.
Yeah, in defiance.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's like, screw you. It doesn't feel voluntary, I think. And then you realise you're a rebel with no cause because you're a grown-up.
Yeah. And you have this kind of knowledge in your head, or an expectation that at some point you're going to fall off the wagon. We all kind of think, well, I'm going to do really well for a while, but deep down I know this isn't going to last.
And how many times have we ourselves or seen friends do it with exercise? I'm going to start exercising, and they'll go, or we'll go hell for leather, and then after 2 weeks you've injured yourself, or you're exhausted, or you just can't sustain it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not... Yeah, it's a false economy. What I tend to tell people when they want to make changes, especially when it comes to fitness or the way they eat, is always like, screw this whole activation maintenance phase. Don't do something to change that you can't do to stay changed. It's actually going to work against you. You will end up disillusioned and demoralized and feeling like you're starting on a back foot. Start behaving as though you've already made the changes, and your task is to keep them up and integrate those changes into your day-to-day life and your values and landscape of, the things you want to do. If you are someone who loves going to the pub, don't create some plan where you lock yourself in the house and you're not allowed to go to the pub. Like, it's going to backfire. Find a different way of doing that activity, because I think a lot of the time we make the mistake of thinking that stopping doing something altogether is teaching us how to do it differently, and it's not. If you stop something, if you're abstinent from a behaviour completely, it doesn't teach you how to do it differently. It's admirable, and it's an accomplishment, don't get me wrong, but learning how to behave differently around the same triggers is an entirely different task, and very often a much more difficult one, actually.
Yeah. So this ties in with your work in addiction then. So that behaviour is serving a role, and it's helping us cope, or it's helping us cope with a trauma or an uncomfortable feeling. So I guess what you're saying is that, we can't just stop doing the thing. We've got to look at that uncomfortable feeling and get to the point where we're sitting with it.
Yeah, it's your friend. It may not be serving you anymore, but looking at it like a friendship can help. Because you can also then think, like, what other friends have I got? Who fulfill a similar role? Or am I over-dependent on this one friend? Or am I finding that, as soon as I feel a negative feeling, this is the one friend I have to compulsively or impulsively reach for? It kind of takes the judgment out of it, and it helps you to forgive yourself for developing a habit that may now be problematic, or to you problematic.
So how do you replace one friend with another? Because I've known friends who have struggled with alcoholism, and they've replaced that with an exercise addiction, like really going to the next level as far as exercise. And they're not drinking anymore, so that's great. But the relationship with exercise also doesn't feel healthy.
Yeah, I think there are different schools of thought when it comes to addiction, as you know. Replacing addictions. From the last time I checked, we still don't have... we know that there's no such thing as an addictive personality. There are all sorts of things at play. I think the thing I think is important to remember is that it's the discomfort that you're learning to sit with. So the example I always use is from my perspective, where I'm looking at behavioural change and not really judging substances or whatever else. If every time someone pisses you off, you have to have a bath immediately, then I think it's, obviously with a pinch of salt, but it's the same as needing a cigarette. It's your inability to sit with discomfort that you want to be working on, really. Yeah. So obviously that's a lesser evil, don't get me wrong.
But I get the point you're making.
The point is that the work gets easier when you realise that worst case scenario, if I'm stressed or anxious or upset, I can sit through the discomfort. That's when it gets easier. But yeah, don't get me wrong. Definitely better to have to meditate quickly than smoke crack. Whatever.
I think we're all in agreement on that.
Obviously, I think hopefully that goes without saying, but the more I speak in the public sphere, the more it comes to my attention that sometimes one has to clarify those things.
I feel like there's a T-shirt slogan there: meditate, don't smoke crack.
Yeah. Or just do both and see what happens. I do not think that.
Have I been wasting all of my precious time this week watching those box sets or scrolling content like a silly sheep? Have I lost control? Have I been eating too much shit? And are these choices that I'm making cause they're really not good? I don't have one good reason for behaving this way. Why do I do the things I do to myself day after day? Oh, give me something turbulent times don't give me problems, 'cause there's enough of them around to give my heart something special that will make it feel proud. Nobody makes me live in this ridiculous way. I need a good new habit that will brighten my day.
And so the point is, so this is where the kindness method comes in. So what would be more healthy for us is to build up means of growing our self-compassion and self-awareness. Is that kind of the core of what you're doing?
Yeah, absolutely. Because I think habit change, a lot of it comes down to impulse control. To put that space between wanting to do something and actually doing it is to impose friction, and is to say that you understand that a craving or an urge can be treated as an alert from your body, and you can choose what to do with it. It's not a command that you have to obey. And the thing that slows that down in a really calm way and gives you some time to think about your next choice is having a conversation which is simultaneously firm and compassionate, the way you would with a child who had developed a habit and was used to it, and you were disrupting their status quo. You would be like, I understand why you're finding this hard. Of course, you should be finding this hard. It's totally acceptable. Have your tantrum. But we have a plan, and I know that if I hold my line for long enough, you're going to forget, and that'll be the new normal. And that's the conversation we can have with our bodies when we're deviating from the comfortable status quo and trying out new habits, and impulse control becomes integral to the process. And so I think that white-knuckling it actually just puts us in a state that is not conducive to learning impulse control and imposing that friction between trigger and response.
Very interesting.
So the cold turkey, that's what you're sort of meaning by the white knuckling, isn't it? It's the cutting off that source.
Yeah, or just kind of like blaming yourself for the whole thing more than anything. Like, I should be finding this easier. Why am I so weak? Why can't I do this? This is so easy. Other people can do it. Why do I find it so hard? I know it's bad for me. Like, even that, just that conversation with yourself, doesn't that make you feel more stressed and kind of tense and like you feel a cortisol?
I just feel that I know that feeling. I know that disappointment that you feel in yourself.
Yeah, that's not the kind of vibe that makes you want to do hard things or think that you can. And changing habits is difficult, so you need to do what you can to feel positive and strong and resilient. And speaking to yourself like shit is not going to help with that.
Why do we find it so hard to be kind to ourselves? We say such lovely things to our nearest and dearest, really encouraging and supportive. When it comes to our conversations with ourselves, we can be really hard on ourselves.
I think this is a conversation that I've obviously had with a lot of people, and I tend not to have hard and fast responses to it because I'm frankly not, I intend to read on this for the rest of my life, and psychology is an area that we don't have hard and fast answers for. In my experience, a lot of it comes down to the core beliefs that we internalise about ourselves from childhood and don't check in with and update. And of course, we're much spongier for criticism. Like if I do a workshop and 100 people say it's amazing and one person says it was rubbish, tell you which one I'm just tattooing itself inside my brain. And people speak beautifully on anxiety and how we are, from an evolutionary perspective, wired to focus on our threats and our deficits, etc. So that it may be reinforced by that. In my case, a lot of the time it was about caring about other people more than I cared about myself. And so it was all about closing that gap, really, and thinking, why don't I deserve to be spoken to that way? Why don't I deserve to be forgiven as quickly? And that, for me, came when I saw the value of it in behavioural change. It wasn't just I woke up one day and I was like, I deserve more. Although I did. But for me, it was compelling because it was like, hold on, if I'm nicer to myself and I like myself more, can I achieve my goals more quickly? Because if so, I'm listening. And then I inadvertently thought, wow, it actually feels really nice to treat yourself the way you treat other people.
Yeah. And then do you naturally, just tying that then back in with your habits, do you naturally kind of think, well, this isn't going to serve me? Or you're naturally wanting to do things that are going to nourish you more?
Not necessarily. I mean, I had quite a few drinks last night. That wasn't nourishing. I'd say...
Hands up.
Yeah. Do you know what it is? I just find opportunities throughout the day to make my quality of life a little bit more important. So I think sometimes, like, okay, if someone's staying at my house and they want a glass of water, I'll probably put ice in it.
Yeah.
You know, and probably light a nice candle. And, like, I just try to treat myself literally not better than I treat anyone else.
But just
The same as.
yeah.
And then tiny little things throughout the day. You know, I think about my mum and I think, oh, you know, I hope my mum's drinking enough water. Oh, I hope I'm drinking enough water, you know? And those little things that pepper the day, if you do that enough and you look for opportunities enough and you've kind of got your radar on, then when you start making decisions that are unkind, whatever that definition is to you, for me it tends to be decisions I'll regret tomorrow, or decisions that I wouldn't make if someone I respected was watching, stuff like that.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, how do you know the right ones? The wrong ones stick out like a sore thumb now.
Yes, okay.
Against the landscape, as opposed to thinking, right, the kind decision for me would be to go to a meditation class at 7 p.m. I just think, could I do like 10 seconds of something nice for myself right now? Could I just breathe more deeply than usual? And what that does is that it sets the scene for a lifestyle where you're nice to yourself, and then when you're not, you can feel it.
Yeah.
You can feel it. It sticks out. And that's the shift that I've tried to make. And the great thing is, because I used to be such a people pleaser and I've done so much work on like codependency and self-worth and all this stuff, I maintain people pleasers are the most equipped to do this.
Okay.
We need to turn it on ourselves. That's it.
So to please ourselves instead of others. Yeah.
As if you were the person you were trying to impress the most in the whole world.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden you're like, wow, there's a gulf between the way I treat myself and the way I treat other people. Why?
Joy for human beings lies in proper human work. Proper human work consists in acts of kindness to other human beings.
You mentioned codependency.
Yeah.
What do you mean with that phrase? What does that actually mean?
I guess getting a lot of your sense of identity and validation and self-worth through other people.
Okay.
As opposed to being self-sufficient in that sense. And so it was always like, what can I do for other people? How can I make myself useful to them so that they don't leave me, I guess? I mean, this is 10 years of therapy, by the way. This isn't just like I've randomly come to this conclusion.
Yes. Yeah, well, you're a professional, aren't you?
Yeah, I was like, I unpacked that really quickly there.
Done, boom, brilliant.
But yeah, it's like, that was my main thing. Like, I really had in my head that I had to be useful to people. And that they had to like me. That for me is a big thing. I have to really keep an eye on that.
And I guess that's another sort of sitting with that uncomfortable feeling, that feeling of that person doesn't like me, and that's okay.
Now, going back to food, you mentioned you wrote the book The Last Diet. Was this your first book?
The Kindness Method was my first book.
Great, done my research.
Don't worry about it. Couldn't
Was
care.
this your last book?
My last book was called The Last Diet. And yes, it uses the same framework that the Kindness Method uses. So it takes you through a process of looking at your own habits and privately inquiring and creating motivational aids and all of that stuff. But it's more specific, it's more personal. It's about my own difficulties with gaining and losing enormous amounts of weight because of what I transpired to be binge eating disorder, which even when I wrote The Last Diet, I didn't realise. I was just describing it as a behaviour.
Okay.
But now that I work more with eating disorders as a result of that, I've realised that I had a pretty extreme one.
Yeah. Right.
And yeah, so I wrote a book for other people who happen to put on unwanted weight as a byproduct of binge eating.
Right.
But I'd say the vast majority of people who feed back about that book are not concerned about their weight at all, which is one of my favourite things in the world.
Okay.
That regardless of the byproduct, they just want to feel more empowered when it comes to their decisions around food. And I think, in my opinion, a lot of the people who relate to what I've shared actually believe that they developed binge eating habits because of trying to lose weight and dieting and restricting.
Right.
And so I think dieting has a lot to answer for.
Yeah.
For a million reasons.
Yeah.
And one of them that I found quite difficult to discuss was this, because, talking about weight loss, I didn't want to be misunderstood. But luckily I haven't been. It's one of my proudest things that I've been able to get across that nuance, and basically say I'm only helping in that sense. If you, like me, at times when you are overeating or binging, you're also neglecting yourself in a number of other ways, including the way you speak to yourself, including, normal day-to-day healthy stuff. Like back in the day, unless I was on some hideous weight loss mission, I wouldn't even exercise or drink water. That's the extent to which I had been conditioned to think that someone in that body didn't deserve to take care of themselves until they'd changed it.
Right.
So it wasn't until I decided to take care of myself regardless of how I looked that little missions to be healthier or exercise more or eat more vegetables or whatever became much, much more easy, because they were completely disassociated from this really horrible mission of trying to make myself smaller. But it all worked out great. This is how I'm supposed to be. I know it's a weird thing to say, but at the age that I've got to now, I just kind of feel like, that's about right.
This is the shape my body is at this stage of my life.
I'm not hungry. I move around. My weight fluctuates all the time.
Yeah.
Just like anyone else.
Yeah.
And that's just fine.
Yeah. And it's just, I was talking to friends because we're going on holiday in a couple of months, and I was talking to another friend who's also going on holiday, and literally all of us said, I've just got to lose half a stone and then I'll be happy. And it's always like, I've just got to lose this amount and then I'll be happy, or then I'll be able to go on, start dating, or then I'll be able to go do the thing. And it's like, how great would it be to give that up, to give up that attachment to weight.
And the other thing about life on hold, by the way, whether it's about, when I've got this or when I've got that, I'll treat myself with that. It's so common for us to do that. And I remember once, I shared this in my first book, I think. I was in counselling many, many years ago, and I was at maybe one of my biggest stages. You kind of lose track when you're so used to all that fluctuation. And I just remember being really focused on the fact that my life was going to properly start when I'd lost weight. And I was going to date, and I was going to be more ambitious, and all these things that had nothing to do with anyone's weight. And if I was talking to someone else, I would never attach those things to each other. And yet for me, that seemed to be what I had decided. And my therapist said to me, what if you never lose weight? And I honestly, I was so angry with her. Rage was just bubbling through me. And it was actually one of the most important conversations we ever had in the end. But she basically said, what if you never do? And I went away so angry. But then I thought, what if I never do? What would I start doing? Well, I start taking care of myself. I'd give up this ridiculous mission, and I'd drink some water, and I'd go on holiday. And for me, I had all these little things like, I can't eat a pizza in my swimming costume, or these weird things like I can't go on a date until I can fit into these jeans or whatever. And I just thought, just do it. And it turns out I was completely wrong about all those things. And not only was I wrong about them, the more I did things that made me feel valued and like kindness towards myself was not conditional, the easier it was to create new habits, have more impulse control, and do difficult things. So it turned out that was an integral part of me actually, in my case, losing the unwanted weight.
Right.
And so, it's about making it work for you. And it's enough to start noticing pockets of opportunity to do little things, as opposed to these like profound transformations of like, I will become a yogi. It's like, why don't you just stretch for 30 seconds, see what happens?
Yeah.
You know?
You don't need to dedicate your life to it.
Yeah, exactly. And also, you may find that it has a knock-on effect on something else. Like, if maybe I'm the kind of person who makes a smoothie now, and takes some fresh air. And for me, that domino effect, those signals that you can give your body that your experience matters, for me, have been more effective than like formalized exercise and things like that. If I can just pepper my day with reminders that I matter, and my body matters, and my health matters, and my quality of life matters, then the rest kind of takes care of itself.
Mic drop! Boom!
Thanks, guys. Shall I actually drop your very expensive mic?
No, don't.
Of this mound of dirt that we're sat on.
Metaphorical mic drop. Now, we asked Shahroo to give us some top tips and a bit of a challenge so we could try changing our own habits. So grab a pen and paper because we want you to join in too.
What would I recommend that someone who wanted to change a habit did? First of all, acknowledge what you're afraid you're going to lose if you change it. What are you afraid will happen? Think about that a little bit, because that can give you insight into why you're finding it difficult, even if it's objectively simple to change, and it can help you to build in compassion for yourself and start that conversation when you're finding it hard, which is, I knew this would be hard, but I can do hard things, as opposed to, oh shit, this is hard. The other thing I would say that can be really helpful is to carry around in your pocket, on your phone, whatever, a list of all the things you've done that are difficult. And in that moment where you doubt yourself, glance at it, because you can think, well, yeah, the challenge in front of me, the choice I have to make right now is difficult, but I've certainly done more difficult things in my time. I think it can help to project into the future and think about two possible outcomes, you know, in a month's time, if I have changed or if I haven't, and just kind of draw out how you're going to be speaking to yourself, what life will look like, etc., so that you feel like there's a direction that you're generally moving in, even when you're making decisions that you didn't have a plan for, that is kind of off plan. You can at least think, well, can I make it so that this decision moves me more in this direction? One more. Get a pen and paper. Imagine that someone you love and want nothing but the best for has come to you and said that they're trying to create a new habit and achieve a goal, for example, and they've fallen off track and they need to get back on track. And you are tasked with getting them back on track. And write down everything you would say to them. Put their name at the top of the piece of paper. Write down everything you say to them to get them back on track. And then when you're finished, cross out their name and replace it with your own. And commit to speaking to yourself that way.
Give it a try, won't you please give it a try, yes you should, give it a try, won't you?
Thank you so much to Shahroo. I enjoyed that conversation so much, so many fascinating points that she raised, but we'll talk about that in a minute. But in the meantime, just to let you know, if you want to find out more about the workshop she delivers, the coaching services she provides, her books, and the multitude of other things that she's involved in, head to her website, which is www.shahrooizadi.co.uk. And we'll put that link in the show notes as well.
Absolutely brilliant. I tell you what, we were hanging off her every word, weren't we? Because we were like,
yeah.
Yes, we want to change habits. Yes, we want to create healthy new ones, please.
Yes. And I really liked her approach of it feeling very human, you know, that you don't have to, very achievable in a way, you know, being kind to yourself, being gentle about it and finding ways of making these changes without beating yourself over the back constantly.
Yes. I think that was one of the big breakthroughs for me. It's like, don't just say, don't do the thing. It's about putting stuff in the way of doing the thing or adding in a healthy thing.
Yes. Or removing the friction to doing the thing, making it easier to do the thing.
Yes, making it easier to do the good thing, the new thing. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Completely.
Really simple. Really simple.
I know.
Surely we can all achieve that.
I know, when it's all read out, you're like that. You're like, well, yes, I will kick that crack habit. No problemo. Just for the record, don't have a crack habit. Just want to put that out there.
Yeah. I don't know whether we should joke about crack habits, should we?
I don't know, actually. We're going into dodgy territory.
Maybe we shouldn't.
So it was great that she gave us a bit of a menu of things that we could try.
Yes.
How did you get on with it? What did you do?
Yes, well, I tried all of them.
Brilliant.
Well, at first it was like, what habits do I want to change? And then it's like, how do I narrow this list down? It's like, where do I begin?
Yes.
So they were really helpful. The funny thing is, when I first heard that list of things, I was sort of thinking, I can't see how useful they'll be. Do you know when and it's not until you sit down with a paper and pen and you get your body into it and and you feel differently as you do. I always find that with writing exercises. And I always come out with more than I expected going in. So this is definitely one of those situations. So the thing that I did first was the writing down how differently I would feel in a month if I do the new healthy habit, and then how I would feel if I don't do the new healthy habit.
So do you want to share with us what the new healthy habit that you want to bring into your life is? Or you want to...
Yeah, no, I'm not going to tell you anything else about that. You'll just have to imagine. It went really well.
The end. See you next episode.
The end. Your turn. No, I will. No, my healthy habit, following on from Mr. Motivator, I want to do more exercise.
Okay. I like it.
I'm still a bit off the wagon with that one. So, and it was really nice to just really fully imagine how I would feel in a month's time if I did bring exercise back into my life, like in a daily kind of way. And, so I was listing, my mental health will be a lot better. I'll feel fitter. I'll be fitting into my clothes better. And I'm going on holiday to Spain next month for my birthday. And I will feel so much better if I've been getting fit before I go. I'll just feel more confident. I will enjoy myself more, and I'll feel proud of myself. And also, I was thinking I'll be eating better because I'll be prouder of my body and loving my body more, and I'll be wanting to put in nourishing things into my body. So naturally you eat better. The list goes on, but it felt really good. Like I felt good after writing that list. It was like, oh yeah, if I do this is how good I can feel. Then when I wrote the list about how I will feel if I've just sat on my arse eating Pringles and actually just thinking about exercise, which is my current life, if I do that for another month, I mean, a lot of it was just the exact opposite to what I'd said in my positive list. But yeah, I'll feel a bit miserable, to be perfectly honest. Yeah. My mental health will be affected. I'll feel disappointed in myself. I won't feel comfortable on holiday. And it'll be, another birthday, another milestone. I'll be like, feeling a bit crap about myself. And I'll be feeling like I need to restrict my eating, or that the answer is a diet rather than, know.
Yeah.
So, I will basically, actually, I've written at the bottom, I will feel shit about myself.
Sum it up in one succinct sentence.
So that felt like a really good exercise. And I really felt it in my body.
Yes.
And it really gave me a real motivation. I mean, let's see if it actually works, but it really made me think, I have no choice. I've got to do this because I'm going to feel, I'll feel really great in a month.
Brilliant.
So that felt really good. And then the next one that I did is the list where she says, write the things that you've done that have been difficult.
Yeah.
The whole Glennon Doyle, we can do hard things.
Yes.
And I sat there with that for a minute. I was like, oh, what have I done? And let me tell you, I've done a good old whole side of A5 on this. I've done quite a few things that have been difficult. Just to name a few, moving house 7 times in the last 4 years. And, navigating my way around various doctors and medical centres in Greece. Sure. And moving to cities where I didn't know anybody, and launching a podcast in a pandemic. So there was a whole list of things.
100%.
Some of them obviously far more traumatic, but some of them smaller. But it did make me feel, God, I have managed to do some really tough shit. And you kind of then go, not everybody could do this stuff.
No. Did that make you feel good about yourself, make you feel confident in your own strength and resilience?
Yes, it really did, actually. It made me think, like she said, I can do hard things.
That's a really good exercise, isn't it? Just to remind yourself, like, this isn't the first hurdle that you've come across. This isn't the first thing that you've had to navigate that's been difficult. You have a good track record.
Yes.
In making and doing things that are challenging.
Yes, we can do hard things. Yeah, so we can do this too.
Yeah.
This, just making myself do exercise every day, is easy in comparison.
Yes.
Surely.
So
I thought they were both very good exercises.
Yes.
And far more useful than I thought they would be.
Okay, isn't that interesting?
Yes. Did you do those ones, Kate?
So the one that really leapt out at me that I thought, I really want to give that a go, was the writing the letter one, because so often I'll be talking to a friend and maybe giving them some sort of advice or suggestions, and I'm thinking in my head, I wouldn't do this myself, just laughing at the fact that we're so good at being really caring and compassionate and kind, but also sort of logical and maybe using our common sense when we're talking to other people. But so often when it's directed at ourselves, we can get a bit lost or jumbled, or we're not as clear in our own thoughts, or we're not as kind and gentle to ourselves.
And judge ourselves more.
Yeah, absolutely. So I thought that was a really nice idea, turning that compassion back on yourself. I liked that. And it ties into all the stuff we've spoken about in previous episodes about the power of writing things down and journaling, the power of getting those thoughts down on paper, which is what you've just said, actually, isn't it, about your thing?
Yeah, that it's actually super effective, isn't it?
Really effective, and it kind of opens up something and releases something for you.
Yes.
Yeah, so I wrote a letter to someone else, but then obviously crossed out the name. The person I wrote it to is irrelevant, really, but crossed out the name so that actually afterwards it was back to myself, as she suggested. And the habit that I was thinking, what shall I focus on? Obviously, like you, there are a few things I was like, I'd like to change that habit or change that habit. And I thought one thing that's been consistent through most of my adult life is that I love a snack. And when I say I love a snack,
girl, I am with you.
And I'm not talking about like, I've been for a hike, I'll have a cereal bar. I'm not talking about that sort of snack. I'm talking about those days when maybe you're kicking around the house a bit and you're not hungry. There's not an ounce of hunger, but you find yourself at the snack cupboard thinking about what to eat. And I guess it's twofold. It's I'll read the letter, because otherwise I was about to kind of translate the letter. Would you like to hear the letter?
I would love to hear the letter. Yes, please.
Okay.
So you in this case, you are writing to a friend who is trying to kick their snack habit.
Has
fallen off the wagon and is maybe doing a little bit of snacking again.
Yeah, and they've reached out to me for a little bit of encouragement.
With crumbs around their mouth and a bit of chocolate, melted chocolate on their lapel.
Exactly.
And you're like, here we go.
And I'm hoping that the sound of the letter falling through the letterbox will make them shut the fridge door.
For just a second.
Just a minute to go pick the letter up off the mat. And here it is. Dear Kate, sugar's nice, isn't it? I like it too. Hey, snacking's fun too. Nom nom. But if you're genuinely hungry, then go for it. But why not have a banana or maybe some nuts first and see if you're still hungry afterwards? And if you are, then hey, why not? Go wild, have a biscuit. But top tip, maybe don't buy the biscuits in the first place. I know, yawn. Anyway, here's to the heart of it though. If you're not actually feeling hungry, but you still want a snack, then maybe have a think about why you're reaching for that snack cupboard. And maybe just stop and count to 30 and let yourself feel whatever those feelings are that are trickling around the edge. And hey, don't be scared of them. You are amazing. You're an inspiration to me and I love you. But you're also a human being. And to be a human being is to feel all sorts of crazy ass shit. So just let yourself feel it. And hey, maybe something good will even come out of it. Maybe you'll feel a feeling that will lead you somewhere else. But you're doing so great. And look, this is not a big deal. But it would be fun to see if you could decide when you want a sugary snack rather than giving the snack the talking stick.
Ooh, I love that.
Ta-ta for now. Lots of love, Kate.
That is so good. Have you thought about doing that as a profession?
As a profession, writing motivational...
People could just ring you. You could be like, hey, girl.
Can you read me a motivational, write me a motivational letter? Because it's definitely sugar. I don't go for the unsalted nuts and the banana. I definitely am like, what's the quickest hit of sugar?
Yeah, but who wants unsalted nuts? That's just the removal of any joy. I love a salty treat, I have to say.
Snack.
Oh, my God. But I really like what you were saying which is absolutely key. We need to sit and feel the feeling.
Yes. And
that's what we're all trying to cover up.
That's it. And that's the big takeaway that I got left with after our chat with Shahroo. That so many of my habits that I don't feel are necessarily the best habits are often things that are kind of filling a gap where something uncomfortable has come up. It could be boredom. It could be I'm a bit frustrated. It could be I don't know how to do the thing, the other thing that I'm trying to do, so I won't do it. I'll go and eat something instead. Yeah. It could be tired. Sometimes it's just because I'm knackered, and if I go and have a blooming Kit Kat, I'll get a quick sugar boost, and for 20 seconds I'll feel better, and then I'll, we all know what happens after that, don't we? So, but it is always...
You're even more tired.
Even more tired. But 9 times out of 10, it's the masking or drowning out and something uncomfortable.
Yes. I really loved that letter, Kate. That was so inspirational. It's a letter I would love to receive. And how lovely that you then get to... How did you feel turning it around to yourself?
I quite liked it, actually. I was kind of chuckling at myself going... Oh, I know. Yes, I can do this. This is helpful.
I love that. Can I just say very, very briefly, because I know I've already had my time with the talking stick, I wrote a letter and I wrote it to you, Kate.
Oh, I want to hear it.
And I don't know if I'll read the whole thing, but basically I didn't focus on a specific habit, but I was like, you can do this. You are more than capable of doing hard things. You've demonstrated this many times throughout your life. You can achieve anything you want. You are an entirely capable and accomplished and skilled and confident and wonderful and talented woman. People look up to you. I look up to you. And I know that whatever you really want in your soul is yours. You can do it. I love you and believe in you, and know that you have the power to achieve whatever it is you want. You are Wonder Woman. Look at what you already achieve and look at how much you get done in such a short space of time. You can do this. You can be as proud of you as I am of you. Get back on track. I believe in you.
Wow, that's amazing. That makes me want to cry a little bit, actually. Gwen, that's so beautiful. I love that.
I really felt like I was writing to you.
Oh, Gwen.
And then when I crossed your name out and put my name in, I was like, oh, that's so nice. I mean, but then when I read it, because then you read the letter back with your name at the start, and I was like, when I was saying that you're Wonder Woman, look how much you achieve in such a short space of time, I was like, I don't know if that really applies to me, but I'll take it.
Hey, you achieved way more in a way short space of time than you give yourself credit for. 100% that letter applies to you.
Because I do everything in short bursts.
Yeah,
exactly.
You do it in the amount of time that you need to do it in.
Exactly.
And that's the perfect amount of time.
The rest of the time, a lot of faff.
Can we share that letter? That was so beautiful. Can we share it as in for you and me? Because that's just, I feel like I want to pin that above my bed somewhere.
Oh, I'll send it to you. I'll write it out and I'll send it to you, Kate, because you can do it.
Thank you. I love you too, by the way.
Love you.
I like this episode.
We can do it.
We can do it. Exactly.
So I highly recommend these exercises.
I do.
We'll put them in the show notes.
Yeah.
And
that's a good idea.
Get your pen and paper out and get on it.
Yeah.
And you could be as deliriously happy as us too. I love you, man.
Thank you for listening to Write Up My Podcast, and get in touch with us. We always love to receive your emails at writeupmypodcast@gmail.com, or you can find us on Instagram and Twitter, and our handle is WriteUpMy, and we look forward to seeing you over there.
Subscribe and follow wherever you listen, please. And if you listen via Apple Podcasts, please do head on over there and leave us a review and a rating. 5 stars, please. Thank you very much. And please share with your friends. We do think that they will like us too.
If you'd like a little bit more Write Up My Podcast, then head over to Patreon, where for the price of a mere cup of coffee, you can get extra Wiffle Waffle with Gwen and Kate, you can get extra content, and you can join the Rump Club, which is a very, how would you describe it, exclusive, highbrow...
small but lovely.
Small but loving family.
Come and be part of the gang.
Part of the gang, head to patreon.com/writeupmypodcast. And as always, thank you so much to our team who help us put the episodes together.
That is the absolutely brilliantly talented Andy G on the music and the equally brilliantly talented Erica Francis George, who does our artwork. Thank you, you lovely people.
We will be back in a couple of weeks with the last episode of this season.
How is that possible already?
Oh my God. But in the meantime, keep trying things
to make you feel good. Bye-bye.
Tell me, did you like the podcast, Brian?
No!
Oh. If, unlike Brian, you thought our podcast was really great, then don't hold back. Like, subscribe, and tell your mate. But if, like Brian, you thought our podcast wasn't fun, then just keep quiet. Don't feel the need to tell anyone. We'd love to hear from you if you've got some thoughts to share. Such rich and lovely views that all should be aware of. But I hope you liked our podcast and you thought it was really great. And if you did, like, subscribe, and tell your mate. 'Cause we don't need grumpy pants bringing everybody down. No, we don't need negative Nellies making people frown. No. So I hope you liked our podcast and you thought it was really great. And if you did, like, subscribe, and tell your mate.